Amen. Please be seated. On July 14th, 2015, NASA sent a space probe called New Horizons, and on that day it reached Pluto. Scientists debate whether Pluto is actually a planet. It's that far out in our solar system. We've come so far. 4.7 billion miles to Pluto. That's how far that space probe traveled. And yet, when you compare that distance to the size of the universe, it's not even a baby step. So the amazing thing about this holy night is that the maker of that very same universe that is so vast that we cannot even begin to conceive of it, that the creator of that universe would choose to be born a human child, that kind of divine majesty, so far beyond the reaches of human comprehension, would choose to limit itself, would choose to be born in Bethlehem, a violent area of the world, to be born in a cave because the shepherds would dig caves in the sides of the hills of Bethlehem to keep their livestock safe from the wind. That creator would choose to be born in the dirt as a helpless, fragile baby. Why? Why would God do that? Some scholars have said that God was trying to help us understand who God really is, but I don't think that's true, because I don't think that we can understand God. I think our brains are just too small. And every time we try, and every time we think we know God, we usually do damage to one another, don't we? No, God is so far beyond our intellectual capacity. There's no way we could ever understand God. So why then? If we can't understand God, why would God become a human child? Except maybe to help us understand who we are. Who we are supposed to be as human beings, and how to love. You see, human beings, we can get confused. We think that if we get smart enough, we could become God. But that's a lie. Remember in the Garden of Eden how the snake said to Eve, "If you eat this fruit, you'll become like God." Was the snake right? No, it was a lie. No matter how many space probes we send out there, we're not going to become God. We are limited, finite, helpless creatures. We are fragile. And every day that we spend living is a day to give thanks for. So maybe God came to us to help us understand who we are and how to be human. Every Sunday, I get to look out at these beautiful faces. And I've been the dean here for 9 years. And the wonderful thing about being in a church for years is that you begin to really know people. When I look out, I see people that I know deeply, people who have opened their hearts and let me in. I've been with people in not only the good times, but also in the hard times. But what gets frustrating for me is that I will look out and I will see, for example, 2 women whose husbands have both died within the past few months, and they're sitting one right in front of the other, but they don't know each other. Or I will see 2 men, both of whom have recently been diagnosed with dementia, but they don't know each other. I will look out and see grandparents whose 25-year-old grandson has died unexpectedly, but no one in the congregation knows, so no one can give them a hug. Or the newly married couple that loses a child. You see, we try to pretend that we have it all together. We try to pretend that we're successful, that we know what we're doing. Ask an American, "How are you?" We say, "Fine," even when it's not true. But love doesn't happen when you're trying to impress each other. Love doesn't happen when someone tells you that they went to the greatest college in the nation. Love happens when we share our vulnerability with each other, when we admit that we're helpless, just like that baby. God came into the world as a helpless child to show us how to relate to each other. And Jesus would also die helpless. God didn't have to do that, except if he was trying to show us how to love each other. I have a friend who's a priest in California. There's a family in his congregation whose son was in high school, and when he was a freshman, he was diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer. All throughout high school, he battled this cancer until his senior year, when he just decided he had had enough. He was tired of the pain. It hurt to breathe, and he wanted to say goodbye. So, this young man did something extraordinary. He asked to go home and to be on hospice care, and he asked that everyone that he knew would come by and say goodbye. There he lay, helpless, bald, dark circles under his eyes, hardly able to breathe, and a line formed from his bedroom, down the stairs, through the hallway, out the front door, down the front lawn, and down the street. Almost every kid in his high school lined up. to talk to him and say goodbye. Teachers, friends. And as each one walked by, there he lay, broken. But he told them each something beautiful. If he knew them, he thanked them for knowing him. He asked people to take care of his parents, of his younger brother. There he was, so broken and so full of love. You know, St. Paul would hear Jesus saying, "My power is made perfect in weakness." My power is made perfect in weakness. When we admit that we're broken, that we're scared, that we make mistakes, that we really don't know what we're doing all the time, that's when God can be God, because we get out of the way. A friend of mine calls them God opportunities. She says that God does the best stuff when she makes the worst mistakes or somebody else makes a mistake. Like when she goes to the wrong place and ends up meeting someone who needs to talk to her. When she says the wrong thing and apologizes and ends up getting to know someone. So I pray that this Christmas, as you open your presents, as you call the people you love or spend time with them, maybe try not to have it all together. Make a space to be imperfect. Have the courage to be vulnerable as God did. And see what happens. See if it opens up a space for angels to come, for miracles to be made. Christmas begins when we let God be God. And we admit that we don't have it all together. Could you imagine this country if both political parties admitted that they didn't have all the answers? Could you imagine this world if we tried to see everyone as if they were that little child? We all are, you know. We don't have to wait to lie on our deathbed to admit that we love each other, that we need each other, that we're broken and complicated and confused, but grateful. Grateful to be alive. Grateful to have this one precious, holy, mysterious life.